Hello, everyone. My name's Connel. I'm the platform director at Zapper, so I look after the kind of tech stack as a whole. Before I get into the presentation, I thought I'd just kind of motivate things by showing you an example of an experience we've put together at Zapper that kind of demonstrates what Zapper is capable of. And I will be giving you a peek at the tool that we've used to build that experience that we're going to be releasing in beta this month. So without further ado, I'm just going to switch over to the iPad. I'm going to start the Zapper app. So in your conference bag, you should find one of these. It's our adventure suit, and so it's a bit of content we've put together. It's quite cute. You should give it a go. I'm just going to demonstrate one of the pages. I presume I don't have to explain what AR is. So it's you can see the camera view, and when I bring a piece of content into view, assuming that focus is, there we go, it detects the image and brings it to life with some content. And in this case, we've got a little 3D experience that happens on top of this page. This is just one page. I wonder if I can prop it up to avoid shaky hand syndrome. And we have a little interactive experience here. It's full of animation. It's got 3D interactive bits and pieces. There's sound here, although maybe we're not quite hooked up right. Each page has something different, and it's pretty cool. So that's the kind of motivating bit. We're going to show you the tools that we've been using to make this sort of content in a bit. But first, I'd like to tell you a bit more about Zapper and the process we've taken getting to where we are with these tools. So I'm just going to flick back over to the laptop. Nope. Cool. So we have the privilege at Zapper of working with lots of big brands around the world. And what we do for them is we build augmented reality experiences. We've worked with the likes of Hasbro and toys. We work with Carrefour, the second biggest retailer in the world, to bring their point-of-sale things to life. We work with lots of great people. Warner Brothers is one of our big clients at the moment, actually, bringing to life lots of their licenses, like Scooby-Doo and Tom and Jerry, and we do that all over the world with them. And we bring lots of things to life. The kind of typical staple from what you'll see from AR companies: posters, print, magazines. We do loyalty cards. We broadcast is another thing that Zapper is used for, which is kind of traditionally tricky for AR companies where you're searching for just an image. But the key for us, the key learning that we've had over the last 4 years at Zapper, is that AR is about content. The key thing is that, or what we don't do at Zapper, is produce a piece of AR tech where the user would better be served in an app or on a mobile web page. If AR isn't adding something to an experience, it's detracting from it. And that's why at Zapper, content is king. We're not about making an AR experience where you scan your Metro card and see your Metro times. That would be better served in an app. We're about having Scooby-Doo running around in your front room or off your DVD cover, something that's going to give the user an experience that enchants them and entices them to share it and to show other people. That's why at Zapper we build these little short-form, bite-sized entertainment experiences. We call them zaps. We reckon that they take a couple of minutes for a person to experience, and that means that they have to be fast to download and they have to be visual and interactive and exciting. 4 years ago, when we started at Zapper, we had a piece of computer vision tech. We had an algorithm that could track images in the camera view. And we wanted to make exciting content using this tech, so we had a look around to see what we could find. We had a couple of key criteria that we needed from our content platform. It had to be light to download, so we're talking no big 8 meg plus engine downloads of Unity or the like. It had to be mobile first, so it has to understand the orientation of the device. So if you move it into landscape or portrait, it has to understand that the primary camera on a device faces away from you rather than towards you like it does on our laptop. It has to understand that there is also probably a camera that faces you as well that can be used for interesting things. So it has to understand mobile. It also has to understand real 3D space. So the space in this room, for example, and rendering content into that is quite distinct from rendering traditional content on the screen of your phone. And so that's important. And when we looked, we didn't find anything that allows you to do this. And so we built it. And over the last 4 years, we've been building and honing that technology, and we use it to service all of our wonderful clients and customers. However, now we feel that the technology is in a place where we can share it externally. And we would really like to see what other people can build using this tech. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Zapper Studio. A couple of very quick bullet points. I'll just explain these very quickly, but we'll see a proper demo in a moment. Fully scriptable, so JavaScript scripting language for building immersive experiences. It's really important because people tire very quickly if all you've done is like drag a 3D model that sits on an image. You want that 3D model to do something and to interact with the user. That's where the magic lies, in the experience the user doesn't expect to get but receives and delights them. It, of course, supports augmented reality out of the box, but it's a kind of interesting distinction here that this tool is actually quite interesting just for making short 3D experiences in general. And so at Zapper, we're not wedded to the fact that this technology can only be used in AR. It can make great gyro-based experiences, for example, or it can just be used for an on-screen 3D experience that can be downloaded very quickly and that users can interact with and then share on with others. It, of course, supports 3D. We have exporters for Maya and 3D Studio Max, and it supports rigged animated characters. As you can imagine, if we're working with someone like Warner Brothers, having Scooby-Doo, a 3D character running around is, to a child, enchanting. It supports immersive worlds. So what I mean by this is a gyro-based experience where you can look around a room and then the things appear tracked in the room rather than tracking, say, an image target. It supports really powerful animation tools so that you can build these experiences like the ones we've just seen really simply and easily with a mentality around it that a designer is used to rather than a programmer. And it's fully hosted by Zapper. So we have this product already called the Zapcode Creator that allows people to build simple AR experiences. Zapper Studio, our new big SDK product, uses the same server-side backend that runs the Zapcode Creator. So it's super scalable. It's completely hassle-free for hosting your content, and it comes with great analytics that allow you to understand how long someone has spent in your experience, what they've done in that experience, and where they are, the usual data analytics sorts of bits and pieces. So I'm going to give you a demo of it because that's really the easiest way to see this product. And I think during this demo, if anybody has questions that occur to them throughout, then just put your hands up and we can deal with them as we go. That's maybe easier than saving them all up to the end. Cool. So let me just flip through to the tool. This is Zapper Studio. This is just the front screen. There's more to it than this. I'm going to create a new project. I'm just going to call it simple. Oh, and somehow I've got caps lock on. Simple demo. And it gives me a pretty standard view. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just import a picture of my business card in. So it's going to be a tracked experience I'm going to make here, very simply tracked from my business card. So the first thing I'm going to do is import just a PNG or a JPEG of my business card in. I've got it in here somewhere. There we go. It's the business card. And Zapper Studio is just going to go and run some algorithms on that to get it into a form that it can track and understand. That just takes a few seconds, and once it's done, it should appear over here on the right in the media library. So I can drag that target image from the media library into my scene here on the left. So this view on the left is a hierarchy, a 3D hierarchy, what's called a scene graph in the manuals about 3D stuff. And once I've got that there, you can see my target image has appeared in this 3D view in the center. So I can kind of look around my target image like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is just simply drag a plane onto it. So just a square rectangle, white rectangle square thing. It's not going to win any Augies, this experience, but if I hit preview, it will get uploaded into the system, assuming that the Wi-Fi is going to be relatively fast, which looks like it might not be. One sec. I'm going to stop short of asking everybody to put their laptops and phones on the ground in front of them, like Steve Jobs did. Cool. So that's just being uploaded into the system there now. And once it's done, it gives me a code that I can scan from the app and preview instantaneously my content. So if I go up here, let me just come off airplane mode. Launch Zapper. Cool, so I scan that code on here. Oh, there's that Wi-Fi issue. Oh, here we are now. And it downloads the content, and I've got my business card here. And once it's done, there we go, a white plane on a target file. So really simple content, obviously, but very quick process from going from my target image to tracking something in the camera view. And of course, that's hosted online. Greater. Have I just gone back? So simple and fast to get to what you want. So let's just flick back to the laptop and do something a little bit more interesting. Yeah. Oh, sorry. There's if we go for this gentleman first, and I'll be with you in a sec.
Can you process the data without using your cloud services? Because sometimes we have sensitive information.
Sensitive information is an interesting point. At the moment, we don't offer hosted services to anyone else. There's a kind of integration question at that point. You know, how we make our systems integrate with the hosting service and what have you. But so for us, the answer to that question has always been no. But where sensitive information is included, that's a different question. And so I would imagine we'd have a conversation with you on that basis. There was another gentleman back here.
Yeah, when you fold your business card away, the objects still stay there. Do you get targetless tracking?
So what we have in the system is complete control over what you do in that situation. So we have targetless tracking in terms of we can gyro orient stuff and we can display things on screen. Once the object goes out of screen, what generally happens is a JavaScript event is called in your experience, and then you can choose what you do at that point. And so we've got really, one of the things this tool does really well is it understands 3D space in a way that kind of traditional 3D tools don't. And so we can interpolate that. We can move that experience up onto the screen in a clever way, or we can do interesting things with it. But it's entirely up to the creator of the experience what happens in that regard. Although we at Zapper put together our understanding of best practice as to what to do. One question up at the back there?
Yeah. With the card, the active display area was that little white box. Is it possible to use it as a trigger to bring up a display for like a full VR room presentation so that you can pan around and...
Absolutely, and one of the demos I'm showing in a moment has exactly that sort of experience. I'll get there in a moment. Cool. Well, I'll continue on with the demo, and any more questions, just let me know. Cool. So we have this kind of simple experience here, but it's a bit boring, so I'm going to delete that. Going back to here. What I also have is a 3D Batman model, which is definitely more interesting. So I'm going to drag that into my media library, and I'm going to drag the Batman model into my target that I've instantiated in my scene. He's pretty colossal, so I'm just going to bring him down in size and change a few of his settings. That one, and then I'm going to bring him right down. And there's Batman, although he's now perhaps too small. So we'll just scale him up a bit. And I'm going to consider my business card flat for this particular experience. And then I'm going to rotate him so that he's standing on the business card. So move that out a wee bit. Let's put him up exactly 90 degrees. Cool. So we have, very simply, a Batman model in scene. So if I were to hit preview and go through the faff of going through to the iPad and showing it, then we'd see Batman on my business card. But we can do something more interesting than that still. So one of the things I'm going to do is create a timeline, an animation in my scene, which is going to animate the Batman's 3D model So I'm just going to create one of these, and I'm going to create one of these. And this gives me a timeline down here that I can modify Batman's, if I can grab the handle, there we go. I'm going to add his animation frame to this timeline. I'm just going to go to the end and change it through to frame 200 in its 3D model. And we can see here that there's an animation that plays in the 3D model. And so you'd build a 3D model like this in an existing tool like Maya or 3D Studio Max. You'd animate the model there, and then you'd import it into Zapper Studio, and then you can change where on that animation you are using a timeline in Zapper Studio. So we can do some other kind of interesting things here. Now that we've got him like that, we can do a little trick to give him a shadow. So I can duplicate Batman. I can squish him right down into the ground, like this. I'll just take the color out of the shadow, make it a little bit opaque, change the setting to false. And then if we play the animation again, there we go, we've given him a bit of a shadow. I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted here, but things like shadows and sound add so much to AR experiences, and they're often overlooked. Just a simple shadow like this makes it so much more believable that it's actually in the environment. So there we go, a shadow. So if I wanted to have this animation play when the person first scans this experience, I have to add a little line of script. So this is the function that's called whenever the person first scans this experience, and I can just drag this animation into the script, which gives me a little variable that I can use to start that animation. So I can go animation.play. And then when I preview and scan this object, then this is pretty much exactly what we'll see. Cool. So let's look at something even more exciting. So I have here the project file for that page that I showed earlier from the adventure book, the Spaceman one. Here we go, the Spaceman page that I had before. So I have the target image currently in view here on screen. There's lots of different animations in this particular experience, but I've got a timeline here that's a bit more complex than the one we had for Batman, which does the playback that we saw before. So I'll just pause him like this, and we can look around and see it's a fully realized 3D experience where he moves around in. And that's exactly the experience you see when you scan it on the phone and move the target. As you can see here, the timeline, the animation that produces this is considerably more complex and has been created by one of our designers at Zapper. And then that's just started very much in the same way that we did a moment ago by dragging that animation into an event that happens when the experience starts, and then calling play. On one of the points earlier about what happens when that target image goes out of view, we have, in this experience, what happens is we've got another timeline which determines what happens when the target disappears. So when the target disappears, this timeline is played forward, and what it does is it hides the content that would otherwise be left on screen in the space that the target had previously been, and it brings in some UI elements to indicate to the user that they can scan a different page by pressing the rescan button, or they can hold the page back in view to continue with the existing experience. So in this case, we've decided that the experience, the AR is such a crucial component of this experience that we hide the content when the target disappears from view and ask the user to return to the page if they want to continue the experience. But if the 3D experience didn't rely on the AR as much, then we could just bring that content up onto the screen if we wanted, or we can define that behavior at design time with this tool. So for example, when the target comes back into view, this timeline is just played backwards, which hides those UI elements and returns the content onto the screen in the now new place where the target has appeared. Cool. So another experience I'm going to show is the gyro-based one, if I can spell gyro right. So here we have a simulated gyroscope environment. So I can just pan and move around like this. If I just flick through, I'll just hit preview on here. We'll upload it to the system. And while that's happening, I will do the switch over to the iPad. Here's the new code. I scan it. It downloads the experience on the fly and loads it up. And then we're in portrait, aren't we? Yeah. And then we have a typical gyro experience. And this one just has some kind of bubbles going around. But if I flick back to the laptop, we'll see how this experience is designed. So in this experience, on the left, where in the previous one we had a target file, we have what we call an attitude orient group. And attitude is just the 3D position of the device, and orient just means to get it upright. So what this group does is any content that's put in there is oriented with the gyroscope. So if you look around, then the viewpoint of the user will move around inside this group. And the tool provides this little button for simulating that process. But I can jump into this component here, which shows the environment that is used for generating that experience. And so obviously the user is placed at the center of this dome, and it's a completely 3D dome, so we could have that Batman character running around in here, although he's not normally found underwater. But we can place whatever 3D models or experience we want in there. This is built as a reusable component in Zapper Studio, which means that we can build an experience which starts off a tracked image, that when the user presses a button, it brings them into a gyro experience. Or we can have it so that there's maybe not even a tracked image at all in the process. We can compose these elements, and we can build them into reusable modules that can be shared across projects. One of the things that's motivated us at Zapper is that we build lots of these experiences, and it's important for the process to be efficient so that we can take things we've built and use them across our customers' different targets or their different products without it taking a lot of work every time we do that. And that's why Zapper Studio has really core modularity concepts at play, so that you can compose and construct complex experiences from simpler ones, and you can share those between development members and that sort of thing. Cool. So I think I'll switch back to the presentation. I have a little video which just shows a few of the other little bits and pieces that we've been doing with Zapper Studio with some of our clients. So if I go here and the cursor, there we go. Oh, maybe if I just put the audio in here. So here we see a simple experience built of characters. This is a Batman experience where this experience happens off of a Blu-ray and DVD box set. Yeah, there we go, Batman. There's a gyro experience where you can go around and attack flying red bat things. So some more about the scripting here. The scripting is really quite diverse. In fact, Zapper Studio, when people use it to build an experience, that all gets compiled down into this JavaScript, which is run on the device. And so anything that the studio can do can be automated or scripted from the scripting language. And there's lots more obviously that the scripting language can do beyond what directly can be done in the user interface. So that's a little bit more about the timelining. And more 3D environment stuff. So Zapper Studio, we're going into beta externally with this month. So as of this month, users of the Zapcode Creator, you can sign up and get a trial, or it starts at like $50 a month. You can get access to Zapper Studio and start building Zaps, AR content, using this tool straight away. It's in beta for the moment. It will probably be released more generally later this year. You can sign up at our website to get on the beta if you like, or you can subscribe to the Zapcode Creator and have access to it later this month. So, any more questions? Yes, sir. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. You can. Yeah.
My question is, the Zapper allow me to create contents, and I can use the Zapper app for visualize my content. It's right that? Okay. My question is, how many content I can create and publish?
Well, technically, from Zapper's perspective, unlimited amounts. However, in terms of the pricing structure we have, for $50 a month, you can create 30 new experiences every month, I think. It scales up I can't remember, is it $200 a month for the highest tier that we have that allows you to produce 120 different experiences a month. If you're going more than that, then just have a word with us and we can sort out more than that. There's no technical restrictions on the amount of content we can serve through Zapper. So it's entirely just about the way we work with you.
Okay.
Cool. There's a few more.
I've been building with the Zapcode creator.
Cool.
Would I be able to take the Zapcodes I've already created and move them to the Zappar studio to?
That's a good question, and I think unfortunately the answer is no at the moment. The content is created kind of fundamentally in two different ways, which would make a transition from Pro Editor or Widget Editor content into Zapper Studio a little tricky. But you could, I suppose, download the assets out of Zapcode Creator and then recreate them as experiences in Zapper Studio. Sorry, that's not an easier route. There was that.
Can you white label this? Do I need your player? Can I have my own?
We do in certain circumstances, absolutely. We pride ourselves at Zapper actually that the embed component, the bit that fits in other people's apps, is really small. It's a 3 megabyte increase in download size to any given app, which pales into insignificance compared to putting Unity or something like that in someone's app. We tend to do so generally when there's a user experience benefit. So, for example, we embed Zapper technology in many Hasbro apps, or the PlayStation app, for instance, where there's a large existing user base who are going to benefit from having the AR experience occur in an app that they've already downloaded.
Is that a different license agreement?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
Is there a geotagging capability?
We don't have any geotagging stuff at the moment. Zapper's tech, like our entire tech platform is built and owned by Zapper. So if that's something that is interesting and useful, then we can absolutely look at implementing features like that. Yep.
Question on input-output support. Do you guys
Yep.
support 3D engine input from Unity, Unreal, other things? And then what's your output targets and any roadmap information on that?
Yeah, so
Thanks.
in terms of, we have different kind of elements to our platform at different levels. So the most basic element is our image tracking algorithm, which sits at the heart of it. Then on top of that, we have the rendering platform that renders the 3D content that we've seen based on the files that the designers have created. And then on top of that, we have like the hosting and the server-side infrastructure. For the most part, I would say we, as a product, Zapper sells the tracking and the rendering components together as a single part. But that's not to say we don't work with people to supply them with just the image tracking component, for example. I don't think to date we have supplied someone with just the rendering component, but given the kind of simplicity and the usefulness that we've seen of these tools, I can foresee that happening in the future. In terms of plugging it into to Unity or engines like that, using the image tracking algorithm in those engines, I don't see any technical problem with. I think at least one of our clients have done something like that in the past. Yeah.
Do you support lights? I saw that you used like a duplicate of the and then scaled it negatively to create shadows.
Yeah.
So you don't support lights?
We certainly don't support shadows. And at the moment, Zapper is baked lighting, although on our immediate roadmap is more sophisticated shader work. One of the tricky things with AR when it comes to dynamic lighting is understanding where the light sources are in your scene. If you've got a target image like this, moving this around and having a light that is fixed to the business card, the target image, makes no sense because there's no light attached to my business card. It's just an image lit by the environment around me. So making assumptions about where the light sources come from is kind of difficult. And that's why we find most of the time we can have baked lighting and still produce interesting and visually rich experiences.
Most of the time, your image tracking is flat. Like lights, it doesn't matter. Not especially that you need dynamic lighting as long as there's support light because you can play with the color, the environment, the ambient.
Yeah, totally. So you can. It's a good point. Sure, and it's definitely on our roadmap to support that sort of thing. Hi.
Yeah, the demos that I've seen so far are basically on like tablets and cell phones. Is there going to be any support for things like the Oculus Rift or the, Gear VR and other head-mount displays?
It's a really good question. Where we've come from at Zapper is very much an AR background. It's the tech that we spun out from uni was an AR tracking algorithm. However, we recognize that these tools are really interesting and useful for use on much more wide range of environments than just the phone and tablets. We internally have messed around with how we can use this with wearables. And it's very much something we're looking at and will be on the roadmap in the future. There's no specific support for it at the moment, but we can probably give you a demo of where we've got to at some point if you like. It's pretty interesting.
You mentioned audio. Does Zapper Studio handle audio, and how does it do it?
Oh, absolutely. You can just drag them into your media library and off you go.
Do they track with, does the audio track the target?
That's a good question. So we have support for that. I don't think it's actually exposed in our JavaScript API at the moment. But if that's something that's interesting, that wouldn't be a lot of work to get that plumbed in. In general, we support OGG and WAV files. You just drag them in. They are positioned in hierarchy, so they do have a 3D location in space, and so we could definitely do something interesting with their positioning and that sort of thing. I think there's maybe another one at there. Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any triggers for embedding video into the Zapper environment?
Absolutely. We support video in a number of ways. The most simple way is full screen streamed video from the web. But we can also import video as a texture into our experience. So you drag a Theora file into the media library. Theora is just a video format. And then when you drag that into your hierarchy, that can be used as the skin for a 3D object. So the video can play, and that's maybe just a plane which shows the video playing. So just a video in 3D space, and like if you zap my actual business card, it has an example of that. Or it can be applied to a 3D object. So for example, you can do interesting effects where Batman melts or does interesting things by having a video file that is the texture that's rendered on the 3D object.
Right now I'm doing work with like 360 and spherical video formats. I'm looking for things that I can embed triggers into that will pull up information like the Zapper app that you're talking about.
Absolutely. I think one of the key things that certainly with Zapper, but I would imagine with mobile in general, is mobile devices have quite a small bandwidth between their CPUs and their graphics chips. So that makes doing high-resolution video streamed in a way that it's going to be able to be positioned and manipulated in 3D. It makes that kind of tricky because you need to basically throw lots of video data at the graphics card at once. There's multiple ways around that, but certainly without having to do any kind of trickiness or hackery, you could position smaller videos in a gyro-oriented experience that play as you look around. You could do something interesting like that. Cool. Any other questions? No? Cool. All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Connell. And again, remind everyone to fill out your surveys so that you'll be getting emailed after the session. And see you.